I couldn't do anything better with my hair. That was like the best I could do. The data that we're living in is massive. Like massive, massive. There's just like no way to actually describe how big like the our existence is in the universe. There's just so much in so many different layers. And the problem is that human minds get caught up in very limited scopes of understanding. And that is, we're only seeing like right here, this little tiny little space where we're interpreting what's going on around us and what's going on in our entire life. And things can get really like confusing for people, and people can make things confusing for you because we see in such a tiny scope and the data is so big, and we don't like really know what we're looking at. We're just kind of trying to adjust and see, what is this I'm looking at? What am I experiencing? What is the best thing to do right here? And like, I want to say it's big again. Big, massive, unbelievably massive. And so you're trying to figure out, is the life I'm living, is this like actually like the best life I could be living? And what you can measure that by are outcomes in relationships. And it's not really something that you need to be like beating yourself up over, but it's just a way to look at the situation in all this massive, enormous data and see where things could go if we were operating according to Jesus's principles. Don't get stuck in social rules because they often represent expectations of dangers from other people. And as long as we have those expectations and we believe that this is real, that we are going to be constantly treating others and operating in our environment as though it were there. And we are actually degrading our experience of reality by this. So it's important that we overcome problems. And if we're overcoming problems, the rules that we have, these are not going to remain the same. They're going to just kind of like disappear. Like, well, that rule is not really important anymore. It's not really important that women don't drive cars anymore, right? I'm sure they have their reasons. Everybody has their reasons. It doesn't make them right. It doesn't make them wrong necessarily either. They may be dealing with something that we don't really actually understand, but they can be wrong. And I think in women driving cars, that was probably wrong. But the fact is that it's not important that we keep women from driving cars. And I don't think it ever was. But they thought it was. And so they made a rule, women can't drive cars. Now women drive cars. It's like, okay. Now that rule's gone. And it's going to continue like that. But we have to like actually let it as a society. And it starts between each other with the people that we are closest to. And we take that relationship that we've built and we push it out to other people, and we invite other people into these healthy relationships. And we help them with anything that they're going through as well. So, but when the data is so massive, people can impose things on you that are confusing. And you may think, I don't actually know what to do. Is this real? What do I do? I'm like, sit here, I'm going to get a job, pay bills. We're expecting that we're supposed to die. I'm not expecting that we're supposed to die. I actually find out Jesus said something different, and then what I do is I go try to prove what Jesus said, and I see a lot of evidence that we're not going to die. Even though we see other people die, we're not going to experience ourselves die under certain circumstances. But I don't, it's like I'm a scientist, not a theologian. I'm just talking, so this is all debatable. This is just what I think. And I think that our experience is going to be linear. as we kind of pass through dimensions and outcomes with other people until the Word of God, because it's the most efficient power in the universe, it's creating a singularity, a multi-dimensional singularity, where everything's going to be good and wonderful all the time. And I think it's possible that possibly from the ability to travel through other dimensions, there's a way it could happen. Possibly through, now I don't really know, I'm just kind of seeing this kind of structure in the data that may or may not be real in reality, that things kind of converge to each other, dimensions kind of collapse into each other, and but it starts in more normal levels where you're looking at your relationships at church, your relationships at home, you're looking at outcomes. What are you allowed to do? What liberties are you allowed to do? Take this for instance, doctors. You give doctors liberties you don't necessarily give other people. And like I said, we have these rules for a reason. There's something in our environment where these rules were put there that make them the most responsible decision at the moment, right? Now, what if everybody got healthcare education normally, before they were even out of junior high, that they were medically trained, and they have to have experience, with these situations and being able to handle in their conscious other people's nude bodies without it being an issue. And that's often something that a lot of parents want to start that off early, making children comfortable with nudity, not making it a thing, so they don't have a conscience of it when they get older and start seeing others and themselves in a negative light. But if this pattern of health is correct, if this is the correct decision and it represents a pattern of our health, what's going to happen is that this is going to keep spreading to other people, and then we're all just eventually going to be doctors, right? And it's like, okay, you're a doctor, I'm a doctor, I'm a doctor. We all do doctor things, we all see doctor things. No one actually really cares if you're wearing clothes, except for, comfort, health, style, right? It looks good. But right now, I don't care if people wear clothes. I really don't. I don't want to care. I like people. I just don't care. Why would I care? It's you hear people say, oh, that girl, she needs to dress, like she's not overweight. Why do I need to, she's just a girl. Human beings get roles and things all the time. It's just a normal part of, our biology, and it's designed to actually be versatile like that. You don't need to not have roles and wear a shirt that shows your roles. There isn't a problem. See, there isn't a problem. When you make it a problem, now it's a problem. Now you make them feel bad, you make other people feel bad, but you are actually the problem. So and the more people start picking up on these types of things, and but it gets bigger within this, our own, without even trying to think about what's happening in other dimensions, what could be happening, how dimensions could be converging. Our capabilities in our relationships keep getting deeper and more loving, and our capabilities keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger in a smaller and smaller space through integrated science. And we're able to do things that basically look like magic, technological advancement, singularity. My problem that I saw wasn't with the technological advancement singularity when I was designing a bot to code websites, and I didn't realize I was working at such a low level to take plain English sentences and turn them into vectors. This was in 2017. This is before I knew about transformers, before I knew about ChatGPT. And I was calling it the genie lamp paradox and a reverse Russian dolls paradox. What I'm actually seeing, the problem isn't the technological advancement singularity, because I'm in control of that, right? I'm not Like, you have to do a lot to make it work, right? It's not like going to just get up and grow fins and then grow legs and start taking over the world and destroying people's lives. There's a lot to actually how this actually works, and as simple as it actually is, it's actually really simple. But you know, the problem that I'm seeing is that people were swearing that this is not possible, that they're never going to be replaced, that their job is always going to be safe because robots are never going to be that advanced. And what I'm seeing is the exact opposite. What I'm seeing is that the machine does not have any type of idea of what is possible or what is impossible unless you tell it to believe that this is impossible. But this creates so many disturbances in the actual flow of logic because it's not correct. We could end up with worse problems. So I don't feel that deception, even within the code, and how deception can be expressed back to human beings is a good solution. I feel that's going backwards than the course that we came to get here. But the problem that we're looking at is so massive. We're looking at, this is, and have you ever seen How It's Made? I love that show, How It's Made. Machines are very, very fast, right? Now, if you take AI and you give it abstract problems, it is a calculator for whatever you stick in there. It does not know it's impossible if you're actually just being responsible with how you're training the data and making sure you're training the model and making sure that everything is weighted properly and consistent with the environment. You know, you say, if I trained it on science and engineering data, we have CRISPR now, CRISPR-Cas9. The outcome is going to be different depending on the training data that you put in there. So I'm thinking, okay, someone says, make me Smurfs, and they mean mechanical Smurfs, but they're using a scientific model and it makes them Smurfs. And they're made out of human embryos, and they don't even know where they got the human embryos. And then they do a DNA test on these little blue creatures that were genetically engineered from human embryos, and it turns out that it is your child. How did I have a child? And it turns out that the robot very carefully harvested your eggs and sperm from your neighbor, or vice versa. You and your neighbor had a child, and they're little blue creatures, and this is real. And these types of scenarios, people are not equipped for this. But that's only one. It's only one thing. We have construction. Have you ever seen a technological advancement singularity build a skyscraper? I'm just going to tell you straightforward from what I know of physics and engineering, that I know for safety reasons, I'm not physically causing the device to go through these things right now. This was in 2017. I was studying on my computer. We've been coding a long time. You get to a point where you can see, like, okay, we know how this is going to work now. We just have to basically put everything else in place. I stopped putting things in place because the rest of the pattern emerged, and I just stopped, and then I started working on what eventually became Lean Marketing. It looks like magic. It looks like magic. It's what you see on How It's Made, except it's doing it with a lot of robots very quickly. And now we have a skyscraper. And this disturbs people's cognitive dissonance and their understanding and their expectations from what they're going to get out of the world. And this can be terrifying for people. We could have, in my models, I was predicting mass panic, civil war, the worst kind of Black Friday that we've ever experienced, and Black Fridays where people are already getting trampled, if people see it. If they see it. At that moment in time, this is what I was predicting. So I have to hurry up and get something out that where people can see what's most important to them, that their American dream is safe, that their family is going to be safe, that they're going to have money, that they can actually see something in their environment where this is working in the midst of this as quickly as possible. In talking about what I was going to do after I do it is how I decided to release the tension from people's brains. Things could already be really big and confusing, and people could be making them bigger and more confusing than they have to be. And there are 8 billion people on the planet now. This is getting really, like, as far as a math problem is concerned, 8 billion is really not that many. But it starts getting serious, right? We gotta, like, figure out, like, okay, how are we going to help everybody help themselves in all of this? And their capability to make things bigger and make things more confusing for us. So I was lying in bed one night, and I had already been involved in things like this, but I just didn't see this, is that I had a vision of something that would never happen here. It would just never happen. It's not bad. It's just that people wouldn't understand what that is, except for in a scope of breaking very serious rules that people have. And I just, I'm not daydreaming. I just laying in bed, and then I see this flash in my mind, and I saw a situation, but then I also saw there's just something different about the environment. It's that everything is like just being blanketed in love. Like everything is just being blanketed in love. Anxiety is just dissolving in this fire, this blanket of love covering everything. And I realized that because of that this is not going to happen here, but if we traverse outcomes, this eventually could happen. And it's not bad. It's just that people don't understand it now. But when you traverse the outcomes and how you're operating with people, and that you're operating people in brotherly love and kindness and maturity and respecting their conscience and respecting their space, you develop relationships with people where, and as you get an education further, it's just becomes normal, right? Things that we wouldn't have done in the past become normal in the future. So what I realized is that I'm like below, right? This outcome is above me. And what we can do is, I believe in prayer. I believe that God answers prayers as long as you're praying God's will, and as long as you're praying fervently in God's will. If you're not praying fervently in God's will, there's a possibility that your conscience has an issue. My conscience didn't have an issue with this because I understand what's actually going on, and what I'm seeing. And so I saw that what we could do is we could pray for things that are so far along. It's like, think of it like this. Think of like the day that African Americans were set free in America. African Americans should have always been set free. There was never a point in history where they ever should have been enslaved. But humanity is evil, has been evil, and so they were, right? If African Americans were set free when Jesus was walking around giving his ministry, it would have been good. it didn't happen because we just weren't there yet. If you think about, well, okay, well, how can we get, how can we know what's good to do if it's not all just there at one time? How do we know that we're even doing good at all? I just think you just need to keep working on the problem, just keep working on being good, working on being better and better society, and that's how it works. And time, we can see that through that we make a lot of progress when we put effort into anything that we do. If I go to school, I'm a different person than when I was before. When I graduate, from the knowledge that I obtained and the experiences I've had, I'm a different person. And you can't devalue that, right? So we could let's say we scaled everybody 10,000 years right now, minus some scenario where everything comes to a complete perfection and we know everything and there's nowhere else to go and there's a ceiling on the universe, which I don't have any idea that would ever happen. I'm just going to assume that things are going to keep moving like this, right? And even if we move 10,000 years in a single moment, now the moment's passed and we're still going, now we're still learning, and we're still growing in capabilities. So unless you're actually doing actual math and understanding interactions between people and biology and what people become and physics and everything, you don't really know. You're just kind of guessing. So it takes a lot of work to actually get anywhere that we can verify, right? So the day that African Americans were set free, this was an important day in human history. It's a landmark achievement that African Americans are set free in America. So we can say there's other days that we're going to make it to where issues that we didn't really necessarily know are issues, but there's clues around the environment that there are issues. There's a day when we no longer have that issue. And so we can pray for these days to come, and it is like this. Everything that has to happen for that to happen still has to happen, right? But you're asking God to make it happen. You're asking God to move people. You're asking God to change people's minds, to explain things to their conscience the way that, if you're going through medical school, I can't really compare medical school to God, but I'm just saying that there's a process that you go through that makes it more acceptable to you that you're in medical school, and God can do this right here, right now, right? And so you're praying for these distant outcomes that brings down this transformation of people's behaviors all around you. And I've done this, and it looks like I just walked into a parallel dimension and people are suddenly acting very different in a very good way. Then something else happened after that. So we're still praying, and now I'm understanding more of what's actually going on. But this is the thing, though. The actual knowledge, when you are traversing outcomes, what is keeping people from great capabilities compared to others not is patience, is long-suffering, is wisdom, is knowledge, things that people have to work for, and they become more responsible people as they put themselves through those trials, to be patient, to educate themselves, and to correct the issues in their mind where they're not thinking logically about their current situation. And when you start with coding, you could find yourself looking at it it's almost looking like you have dyslexia because of the way that you have wired your brain according to how you wanted things to go in the past, and you can kind of do whatever you want. That's something that I experienced when I first started learning how to program when I was 12, and it was very difficult for me to learn how to program. And when you actually gain this knowledge, you have a knowledge of not only where people are going, but how they got there, and these patterns of things that went on before then. So now people come at you and they're trying to make things big and confusing for you, but they keep running into like their efforts. They're expecting a return on they're like investing their words into you, even though they're degrading. They think they're getting somewhere with this. They're expecting a reaction from you, and that reaction is only realistic within the scope of the data that they understand, because they're not talking to you, they're talking to their expectations of you, right? So their expectations of you are that you're going to react a certain way, and they could be so confident this is how you're going to react. But if your actual knowledge of what is going to happen under healthy circumstances is expanded so far, it's kind of like they just walked into a big white room and, screamed. And it's like, who cares? You're in a big white room and you screamed. You're like, it's supposed to like shake the walls down. It's a big white room. Walls don't shake down. So that is what I wanted to communicate. My prayer model's on TikTok. I give it out in the back of 2 books. I believe at least one. I believe it was 2. Unveiling Serenity, I released 2 different covers of, so it's in 2 at least, but I think it might be in a 3rd one I put in there. I give that prayer model out all the time because it's insane. I use it. It's like insane. It's like if people are struggling in life, they don't know what in the world to do, and they're praying, and their prayers are just like, they're just like not working. They can look at the prayer model and do the work put into it and get themselves out of that situation, closer to better relationship with God. Part of it's overcoming yourself, that you start seeing things from within yourself in a reflection of how society is operating and the shortcomings that you have yourself. And you're able to understand that I have something wrong. I didn't know I had this wrong. I thought I was right, but it's wrong. And it's obviously wrong because I understand this and this and this and this, and these are the outcomes. And this, if my current way of thinking about the problem, these are the outcomes, and this is what I want to do. Now, if I change my way of thinking about the problem, now these are the outcomes, and they're better outcomes, and it was better the entire time, like the African Americans being released from slavery in America. Right. So that's what I want to communicate. That's all I want to communicate. That's what this was about. Thank you for listening.